You know, I bet you don't have a pulpit in your basement. So this is the old pulpit, or lectern if you will, from our church. And while we don't use it as a pulpit anymore, we're not ready to just throw it away. It's got some interesting old woodwork on it. It's really quite beautiful, and there's a lot of sentimental value in this. So I've been asked to repurpose it. We're gonna make it just into a table basically, or a plant stand. So what I need to do is I need to give it a flat top. There used to be like an angled piece here where you'd have your notes from, and somebody's already taken that off. This was a vertically adjustable part. That's going to go. And then I need to fill in this hole with something that's going to bring this down level. So these trim pieces are coming off, and I have some old wood that hopefully will be similar to this. This is either oak or ash, I'm not sure which. Here's a couple of pinholes that I'm going to patch. I'm probably going to do a little bit of resurfacing on the top, but this is not going to be a whole stripping and refinishing of the whole piece. That's really not what we're looking for. Okay, first let's lay this down. Okay. Interesting, look at the bottom here. It's all assembled with nails. Definitely oak, it looks like, but I'm surprised. Like, these just like plain old nails. So at some point in the past they had power in here. Don't need that anymore. Oh, slotted screws. Who does that? The right screwdriver now. Let's get this out of here. The only reason I'm doing this is I need to get the mounting screws. Some sort of transformer. We had some sort of low voltage thing in here in the past. Alright. Gone. Ooh, interesting. These panels are also mounted with nails. They are tiny little finishing nails. I'm pretty sure this middle shelf is not original either because it is covering up the panels in the piece. It has this interesting little flippy piece of wood here that I remember that was used to help with adjusting the pulpit up and down. The top little piece where you could put your lecture notes. Okay, here is the point of no return because I take off these little trim pieces because we want a flat top. Pretty sure this is going to come up in pieces. No finish here, so I'm pretty sure this part is original. Oh. So this top board is separated a bit, which helps us to see here is interesting. These were kind of a double tongue and groove here that was connecting these boards on the top. It wasn't just a straight flush glue joint, which is, you know, what I would have expected and what I would have done. Everybody has a different style of making things. Now for patching that hole in the top, what I've got here is a piece of old pew. Now, it's kind of funny, but it's from a different church, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is this is either oak or ash, not sure which, and it's old. And that's really what I want, is I really would like some old wood to match into the old top. You know, obviously I'm concerned about expanding and contracting. That's why I want to make sure I've got the same species as much as possible and something that's old and well acclimatized. It's kind of narrow in the middle, so I'm going to rip this thing down the middle and plane it down and then glue it back together into a panel. I'm going to skip through that quickly because that's been done many times. So here we go, before and after. So here I broke apart one of the miters off of that piece that I'm not using, and interesting, there are metal splines inside the miter joints. And I ripped off this miter because I'm going to use some plug cutters to cut plugs out of the original wood, because there's several spots on top of the pulpit where there's been places where I need to patch in some plugs. Now the whole thing needs a bit of refinishing, but at least they're plugged. So I measured the thickness of the patch, and I'm using that to set a cleat in place here to match the correct depth that I want. Now, one thing I discovered is there are screws underneath here that are holding this in place. If you wanted to, you could replace the entire top, but we're looking for a simpler approach this time. So yeah, just sort of keep it as simple and straightforward as possible. For the ends, I made the support blocks extra thick, and then I fitted into pocket holes so that I can fasten the patch from below. And then I'm just using this to make sure it's lined up. $12 and almost 5/8, 12 and almost 5/8, 21 and a 16th, and 21 and an 1/8. So it's not entirely parallel, but I knew I was never going to get a perfect fit trying to fit something like that in here. Of course, there are many ways to get an out of square piece on purpose, but what I did is I took this to the table saw and I simply folded a piece of sandpaper under one edge to tilt the corners so that it would take more from one side than the other, and there we go. Yep. One patch. Still a little bit thick, so I think I'm going to run it through the thickness planer and just shave off a bit to try to bring this down so that it's more in line with the rest of the tabletop. Don't look to me for advice on planing. That is one thing I admit I'm weak at. So I actually got lucky on the stain. Puritan Pine number 218 from Minwax. I happen to have like a 1/4 inch in a can, and that seems to match the rest of it pretty good. That's pretty good. There's clearly a color difference, but not much. I mean, between the two types of wood. Here I am taking it apart because I got a little ahead of myself. Because I'm sitting here putting finish on the top, and I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't put any finish on the bottom. And of course it's all solid wood, and do not want this thing cupping or something as it moves with the season. So, and of course trying to reach in here, I tried to reach in there with the brush, but that's not working. Oh, come on, where is it? Okay, after a quick couple of coats of finish on the bottom, let's get back to putting finish on the top. So a bit more of the story here. I knew this was old. I figured, 50, 60 years old, but it's actually like from the 1880s. So I was calling the church office, and I was talking to my friend in the office there, and we were discussing some of the details about what I was going to do, and like if we were going to put wheels under it, because we want to make it more movable, and I'm not putting wheels under it. Mostly because we can't figure out how to make them easily lockable. But anyways, as we were talking, she was mentioning that she had a history there, a history of the church building from 1880. Our church has had the building since the 50s. Before that it was a Baptist church, and actually I'm not even sure how far back that goes. But anyways, she had these notes from like 1880, and they were recording in there that they were getting a new pulpit lectern which was more table-like, and that's this. So this dates from like 1880, so I'm kind of glad I didn't know that ahead of time, and I'm also really glad that I didn't completely hack this thing to pieces. I was going to glue this in at first, and then I decided no, it's just screwed in, so it is removable, which was good because I needed to remove it in order to put finish on the bottom. But I mean, not like it's a precious thing, but it's nice to know about the history of a piece, and yeah, just nice to know a bit of the story. Makes the project a little bit more interesting. All right, so that's 2 coats of finish, or 3, I forget. This is going to take a bit of a beating as a top of a table, so I'm going to probably put on at least 2 more coats. I want a nice solid finish on it. Really happy with the stain matching. I did 1 coat of stain on the older wood, and 2 coats of stain on this patch. I think I mentioned this patch is actually from a church pew from a different church, but partly I did that for the fun of using church furniture to fix church furniture, but also I wanted to use old wood. Since I'm putting it in with old wood, I wanted something that was number 1 had a sense of history to it, and number 2 was really stable and had just finished all its moving, just like that. Okay, time to turn off the camera.